Imagine walking through a quiet field and suddenly you see something terrifying. Instead of trees, there are tall wooden poles sticking out of the ground. And on those poles are human bodies. It sounds like something from a horror movie. But this actually happened hundreds of years ago. And the man responsible was a ruler named Vlad III, better known today as Vlad the Impaler. He lived in a small country in Eastern Europe called Wallachia, which is part of modern-day Romania. Many historians believe his life helped inspire one of the most famous monsters in history, Dracula. But here's the strange part. Some people believe Vlad was a cruel monster who enjoyed hurting people. Others believe he was a brave ruler who protected his country from powerful enemies. So which one is true? To understand that, we have to travel back in time to the year 1431, when Vlad was born. The world back then was very different. Kingdoms were always fighting wars, borders changed often, and rulers had to be strong to survive. Vlad's father was named Vlad II Dracula. He belonged to a special group of knights called the Order of the Dragon. Their mission was to protect Christian lands from the growing Ottoman Empire, which was one of the strongest empires in the world at the time. Because his father was called Dracula, Vlad became known as Dracula, which means son of Dracula. But Vlad's childhood was far from peaceful. When Vlad was still a boy, his father had to make a difficult decision. To keep peace with the Ottoman Empire, he sent Vlad and his younger brother to live at the Ottoman court. They weren't guests. They were hostages. That meant they had to stay there so the Ottomans could make sure Vlad's father stayed loyal. Imagine being a child and suddenly being forced to live with people who might one day become your enemies. For years, Vlad lived among the Ottomans. He watched how their soldiers trained, how their leaders ruled, and how they punished people who disobeyed. Some historians believe this is where Vlad first saw the terrifying punishment called impalement. At the time, it was used as a way to scare enemies and criminals. Vlad never forgot it. Eventually, Vlad was allowed to return home. But when he arrived, he discovered something horrible. His father had been killed. His older brother had been captured and buried alive. And his country was in chaos. Different groups were fighting for power, and Wallachia was stuck between two powerful enemies, the Kingdom of Hungary and the Ottoman Empire. Vlad wanted revenge. But more than that, he wanted control. After several battles and struggles, Vlad finally became ruler of Wallachia in 1456. From the moment he took the throne, he ruled with very strict laws. If someone stole something, they were punished. If someone betrayed him, they were punished. If someone caused trouble in the kingdom, they were punished. But Vlad didn't just punish people quietly. He wanted everyone to see what happened to criminals. Because he believed fear would keep the kingdom under control. That is how he earned the nickname Vlad the Impaler. Impalement was one of the most terrifying punishments in history. A long wooden pole was sharpened and pushed into the ground. The victim was forced onto the pole, and gravity slowly pulled their body downward. It was slow and extremely painful. Sometimes people died quickly. Other times, it took hours or even days. Vlad used this punishment often. Some stories claim he ordered the impalement of thousands of people. These included criminals, enemies, traitors, and invading soldiers. It sounds horrible, and it was. But Vlad believed that if people were afraid enough, they would follow the law. There is even a famous story that shows how powerful that fear became. One day Vlad placed a golden cup next to a public well in a town. Anyone who wanted water could use the well. The cup stayed there for years. No guards watched it. And nobody stole it. Why? Because everyone knew what would happen if they did. But Vlad didn't only use fear inside his kingdom. He also used it against his enemies. his greatest enemy was the Ottoman Empire, the same empire that had once held him as a hostage. In 1462, the Ottomans invaded Wallachia with a huge army. Some historians say the army had over 60,000 soldiers. Vlad knew he couldn't defeat such a massive force in a normal battle. So he used a different strategy. He destroyed crops so the enemy couldn't find food. He poisoned wells so the soldiers couldn't drink water. He attacked the army at night to confuse them. And when the Ottoman army finally approached his capital city, they saw something that shocked them. Thousands of captured Ottoman soldiers had been impaled on wooden stakes across the land. It looked like a terrible forest made of poles. Stories from that time say even the powerful Ottoman Sultan was disturbed by the sight. Some accounts say the army decided to retreat after seeing it. Whether the story is completely true or partly exaggerated, one thing is certain. Vlad understood how powerful fear could be. Now here's where the story takes a strange turn. More than 400 years later, a writer named Bram Stoker was working on a scary novel about vampires. While researching old history books, he discovered the name Dracula. He loved the name because it sounded mysterious and dark. So he used it for the villain in his famous novel Dracula, published in 1897. And that is how Vlad the Impaler became connected to the legendary vampire count. But the real Vlad was not a vampire. He didn't drink blood. He didn't turn into bats. Those ideas came from older European vampire legends. Vlad's story was real history mixed with terrifying rumors and exaggerated tales. Over time, people began to see him in different ways. In some European stories, Vlad was described as a cruel ruler who enjoyed watching people suffer. But in Romania, many people remember him very differently. To them, Vlad was a strong leader who protected his country from powerful enemies. Yes, he was harsh. But the time he lived in was also harsh. Kings and rulers often used brutal punishments to keep order and defend their lands. Eventually Vlad lost power and was captured by the Hungarian king. He spent more than 10 years in prison. Later he returned to rule Wallachia one last time in 1476. But his final reign was very short. That same year, Vlad died during a battle. According to some stories, his enemies cut off his head and sent it to the Ottoman Sultan as proof that he was dead. But even after his death, Vlad's story refused to disappear. More than 500 years later, people around the world still talk about him. Partly because of the terrifying things he did. And partly because his name became connected to the most famous vampire in history. So was Vlad the Impaler a monster? A hero? Or simply a ruler who lived during one of the most violent times in history? The truth is probably somewhere in between. But one thing is certain. Behind the legend of Dracula was a real man whose story is just as dark and fascinating as the myths that came after him. If you enjoyed uncovering this strange piece of history, make sure to like the video and subscribe. And if you want to hear another unbelievable story from the past, you'll love the next video about the mysterious lost colony of Roanoke.